Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Coffee and Football, presented by Vonlane. I'm your host, Blake Monroe, where I'm joined every day by Bobby Burton and Jerry Hamilton. Tell us where you're checking in from this morning, what you're drinking, get your questions in. We'll get to those in a little bit. But first, let's talk about the NFL Combine. Invites went out, guys, and 7 Longhorns get the invite.
This is always a great time of year in some ways, or at least it has been recently with Steve Sarkisian at the helm. Texas last year having 13 invites, this year 7. DJ Campbell, Jack Endries, Jalen Gilbo, Anthony Hill, Manny Muhammad, Trey Moore, and Michael Taft all invited to the Combine, Jerry and Blake. And great moment for those young men that worked so hard and put in a lot of time to make that a reality for themselves. Happy for each and every one of them. Maybe a surprise here or there. I didn't expect Jalen Gilbo, for example, to get a Combine invite, but he did. Apparently he did pretty well at the bowl game recently that he participated in. Jack Endries had an injury that didn't allow him to participate in that bowl game, but he is coming back and should be fine for the Combine. DJ Campbell, Anthony Hill, of course, expected to go to the very highest of all these Longhorns. Jerry talked yesterday about how one scout told him that Manny Muhammad would likely be determined by how well he ran to some degree as far as where he'll go. Trey Moore, the transfer from UTSA. One of the things I wanted to mention here, Jerry, and we talked about this, only 2 of the 7 players going to the Combine are former transfers.
Yeah,
Jack Endries from Cal, and then Trey Moore, a 2-year transfer out of UTSA. Next year, Jerry, I bet that number's 6 or 7.
Yeah,
the 2027 Combine list. Also, we need to talk about who's not on this list as well, and that's Ethan Burke, a young man out of Austin Westlake who played admirably for the Longhorns for several years. Not sure why he didn't get an invite, Jerry. To me, actually.
Well, I think that, from a Texas perspective, everybody's like, oh, Ethan Burke got hosed, whatever. He should have been there. I counted 62 defensive linemen got invited to the Combine. 62 combined defensive linemen. It is a deep defensive line draft, which means there's going to be some guys that get drafted more than likely on the defensive line that don't even get invited to the Combine. Because I'm sure there will be 1 or 2 out of that 62 that don't end up getting drafted that were invited to the Combine for various reasons. But that's a huge number for a position. And that's all told. That's not just edges, but 62. I mean, you're almost 20% of your Combine invites are defensive linemen in this year's Combine. So I'm sure there's another Ethan Burke out there whose fan base thinks he should have been invited. Look, I talked to a scout over the weekend, and they've had Ethan Burke as a mid to late round pick. So there's still a very good chance that Ethan Burke can get drafted. He's going to have a lot of opportunities from testing standpoint. But that's the one thing I would say. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, Ethan Burke absolutely got hosed. I think Ethan Burke will play in the NFL because I'm doing a disservice to 62 other defensive linemen around college football that the NFL scouting world thinks were worthy of Combine invites too. So I'm not going to sit there and say, oh, he should have been in over player X or player Y there, because that's not really fair to those guys. Like Bobby, Gilbo surprised me a little bit. And I think that's going to be the same for all 3 of these defensive backs. Their testing is going to be huge for their final stock as far as NFL draft prospects. I think, and Manny Muhammad is going to be a drafted guy for sure, right? Mid-round guy. Can he move up if he runs really well? We'll see. With Taft and Gilbo, I think they have to test very well to hold on to their position.
I think that's fair if Gilbo's drafted at all. The other thing I would add to this list, the other 2 that I don't want to say were snubbed, I guess, according to Jerry there, but I would say that could have been possibilities. Cole Brevard, another defensive lineman, interior guy via Purdue that came in this past year, played a lot of snaps for Longhorns, as well as Travis Shaw, the transfer from North Carolina. So to Jerry's point, maybe it was a heavy defensive line class overall this year. But long story short, 7 Longhorns in total invited to the draft. invited to the combine. Last year it was 13. The year before that, I believe it was 12. In all, the last 3 years, Texas had 32 players invited to the NFL combine. Texas definitely turning that narrative that was used against them in recruiting for so long. They get the 5-star guys, but they don't develop them. They're turning that on its head right now. And I think that's a good sign for the future of the program overall. Jerry, do us a favor if you don't mind and tell us about our sponsor this Thursday morning, the good folks over at Vonlane.
Man, this is business built for business travel. It's a business built for business travel. When it comes to regional travel, time matters and comfort does too. Boy, they got that solved. That's why more professionals are choosing Vonlane for business trips, conferences, and meetings. With Vonlane, there's no airport chaos and no long drive. You board quickly at private terminals, just minutes from your destination, and travel in a quiet, spacious cabin with only 22 first-class seats. Every trip includes complimentary Wi-Fi, snacks, beverages, hot towel service, and complimentary meals on select departures. And the experience absolutely speaks for itself. One customer recently shared this from his experience. This was actually one of the best traveling experiences I've ever had. I don't think I'll ever drive myself to Houston again. Boy, was I in that traffic yesterday, by the way. The service was incredible, better than any flight attendant I've ever had. Comfortable ride, great amenities, and great service. That sounds like a winner. Vonlane is also upgrading its fleet with Starlink internet, taking already included Wi-Fi to the next level. Ideal for working, emailing, and staying productive while you travel. Vonlane connects Austin, Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, Fort Worth, Plano, the Woodlands, Nashville, Memphis, Atlanta, and Knoxville. Gosh, I can't wait to see what that list includes next year. And for group travel, Vonlane offers custom charters, letting you control the schedule, routing, and experience from start to finish. Book your next trip at vonlane.com. First-time riders enter OTF26 at checkout to get $20 off their first trip. What is Vonlane? It's elevated regional travel. By the way, 18 miles in Houston yesterday, 58 minutes.
For you?
Yeah, I might just – Bobby, will you buy a Vonlane for OTF?
I think we might, for going to Baton Rouge, we may have to charter one.
Yeah,
that's for sure, because that'll be that part of I-10 is hairy getting in to Baton Rouge, something like that. Hey, more combine stuff that we want to talk about this morning. Let's talk about the SEC overall as far as team by team basis. The Aggies, Jerry, having the most invites, continuing down with 13, Alabama with 12, LSU 11, Georgia 10, Oklahoma 10. Look at Florida. A lot of people said, oh, Florida was a bad team, blah, blah, blah. Plenty of talent on that roster for the Gators last year. 9 guys, Texas 7. Arkansas was 6 is more than I thought, Jerry. That's maybe they just didn't play defense in Fayetteville this year. Auburn and Kentucky. Look, I mean, did you expect Kentucky to be that high? I did not. For Kentucky to have as many as Tennessee. I mean, Kentucky, look at this. Ole Miss. I wanted to talk about this. Ole Miss at 5, South Carolina 4, Vandy 2, and then Mississippi State at 1. Your initial thoughts on this list, Jerry?
Well, it's interesting. The first thing I would say this is, we talked about it last year. Florida's a talented football team. Now, Caleb Banks didn't play against Texas, one of those guys, their top guy, probably in the draft. But they were a talented team. Florida's never been a not talented football team. They recruit well in that state. You can say that about they're dominant 3 schools in that state from recruiting perspective. And now that Nick Saban retired, there's some of the more of those guys are staying at home. Now he stopped taking all of their best ones at Alabama. But look, LSU, I mean, you want to talk about who underachieved based on their talent last season. It's probably LSU. Who overachieved based on their roster talent level was absolutely Vanderbilt. Maybe Diego Pavia is the greatest competitor ever, as he calls himself, or something. But to have the season they had with 2 guys invited to the combine, that's pretty hellacious, if you ask me. I mean, they're a player or 2 away from being in the college football playoff in the SEC with 2 guys invited to the combine, Pavia and Stowers. That's impressive work in Nashville. Arkansas had a couple of offensive linemen invited, obviously. But Texas with 7. Oklahoma how many of those 10 are on defense? How much do they have to replace? It is the thing there is when you look at Oklahoma's list, look at the defensive guys. And I'll tell you the other thing, Brennan Thompson, CW House divided. I was going to mention that Brennan Thompson, the only Mississippi State player invited. When you go down that, I have a thread of all 319 combine guys invited on ontexasfootball.com. I have it broken down by some conferences and kids that went to high school in Texas. When you go look at that list, you'll know Sark's doing a good job recruiting football players at Texas because there's a number of guys that were signed by other universities that visited Texas, considered Texas. But so if you look at this, Bobby, I don't know what your thoughts are, but LSU's probably up there as the team that had the most talent that didn't do enough with it last season. And I would say Vanderbilt's easily the team that did the most with less in terms of NFL talent.
Well, I think LSU and Florida are very similar. Last year, they had quarterbacks that or offenses that drastically underperformed. Jerry, I looked at it a little bit differently, and I wrote this morning on TexasFootball.com. The thing that I look at this list and notice first, it actually is who won the SEC this year. Tell me. Yeah. Ole Miss did, right? Yeah. Ole Miss did with five NFL guys, NFL combine guys. Vandy with 2 won 10 games. You know what it tells me more than anything? A lot of these teams, regardless of talent, you go as your quarterback goes. I mean, you can rank these teams how you want them, but Ole Miss and Vandy had 2 of the better quarterbacks in the league. And I don't know what the multiple factor or multiplication factor is of a good quarterback, but good quarterbacks elevated their teams. Average quarterbacks kept them about where they were, and mediocre quarterback play dropped you. LSU had mediocre quarterback play. Whether that's because their offensive line was bad or not is a different story. Florida, mediocre quarterback play. Those 2 teams are out of it, right? Arkansas is the only team up there that had decent quarterback play or average. A&M had average quarterback play. Alabama, I think, had a little bit above average quarterback play, but I don't think Ty Simpson was great this year. Georgia, very solid quarterback play. Oklahoma, material other than his late season meltdown on average quarterback play. I really think that the whole issue here is when you have a good quarterback, it can defeat a lot of different pieces. Ole Miss winning the conference with just 5 NFL combine guys is a real tell to me. It's a real tell. And so is Vandy winning 10 games with just 2 combine guys. I mean, they had what, a quarterback and a tight end? That's it going to the combine. And it's one of the reasons why, and I said this in the article, it's one of the reasons why you, in this day and age, a quarterback coach or a guy that attracts quarterbacks like Steve Sarkisian gives you a real leg up. And the reason it gives you a leg up is because you know you're going to have at least an average quarterback. Texas will not have a quote unquote bad quarterback as long as Steve Sarkisian's coaching at Texas. Same will be this case with Lane Kiffin at LSU, by the way. Yeah. I don't think you can say that about OU or A&M.
I want to say Georgia did beat Bama in the SEC championship game.
Oh, Georgia. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Ole Miss went further in the playoffs. But yes. One thing about Ole Miss, I'm going to give them credit for. They weren't a senior laden team. That's the one thing I'll give them credit for. If you look at Ole Miss, they have Kejuan Lacey coming back, Will Eccles, Suntarine Perkins, Umanamelian transferred, still had another year. Patrick Kutas, Delano Townsend on the offensive line. They were not a senior-laden team. That's the one thing I'll say about them is that kind of impressed me about Ole Miss. Is that they did it with some. They didn't have a bunch of freshmen. They have some younger kids helping them, but they have a lot of guys coming back. And if Lane had stayed there, and some of those guys didn't transfer out from Ole Miss too, they would have had a chance for a little 2-year deal if Chambliss gets an extra year. And I think it's interesting too, Bobby, is the how are all these quarterbacks different? Chambliss was a D2 player, right?
Yep.
Pavia was a JUCO player. Marcel Reed was ranked as a low 4-star, high 3-star guy, but he's 170 pounds coming out of high school, right? And then obviously Simpson was a highly ranked guy. Nussmeier was a highly ranked guy, but not a 5-star guy. Obviously, Georgia's quarterback was a highly ranked guy too. Mateer was not a highly recruited guy, obviously a portal guy. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot that goes with it for sure. And the other thing is, and I haven't had a chance to run all the numbers. I can't wait to run all the numbers of how many of the 100 or all these kids from the 114 from the SEC that are there are portal transfers into the SEC. I haven't had a chance to count those numbers yet, but that's going to be interesting to me too. How many kids portaled to the SEC out of that 114 guys?
A&M, 13 players. Still
Yeah, by the way, so we got to give people credit when they're right. Mike Elko said that before the season. He said, I got 11 or 12 NFL draft picks. And we are like, well, if that's true, he's probably going to be in the playoffs. And the guy was right. You got to give him credit. He was spot on.
Didn't have the quarterback play to elevate him, though. That's my point. That's really my point. You got to have quarterback play to elevate you. That's the multiplying factor.
Sandman with a very important fact that we're 0-2 against Texas. Thank you, Sandman. We forgot that very important part.
By double digits.
Yeah.
Both times.
All right. Well, we've looked at Texas. We've looked at the SEC, but let's look at conference here.
Woo! This is
most 2026 NFL Combine invites by conference. The SEC leads the way with 114. The next closest is the Big Ten with 84. The ACC has 50. The Big 12 has 45. And Notre Dame as an independent has 6. And then you get into the lower level. So
this kind of goes into a conversation we had all season. The Big Ten at the top of the conference is just as good or better than the SEC. But the SEC, the depth, that's what the coaches always talk about, is the depth of talent in the SEC. Every team, every game, and think about it, Vanderbilt had 2 NFL Combine invites and they won 9 or 10 games?
Yeah.
I mean, 10 games with 2 the depth of talent in this league is incredible. Again, I'm going to run the numbers after the show and see how many guys actually portaled into the conference because that's very popular in the SEC because kids grow up wanting to play in the SEC and they see the SEC is the pathway to the NFL. But still, that's depth of talent in league is what that is. And I ran the numbers. Texas played of their Power 4 conference teams, so your SEC games plus Ohio State. I didn't count Michigan because the bowl games kids sit out. Texas had 68 guys they went against that were invited to the Combine, minus a couple that were injured when they played Texas, Le'Veon Moss, Caleb Banks, but 68. So, again, that's a huge number. But, Bobby, the depth of talent in the SEC and the depth of the league is the difference in those 2 leagues, while the Big Ten's has been on their run of winning national championships. And also out of the ACC's 50, 10 were Miami. So then you take those numbers for the rest of that league, and that's a low number.
Yeah. You're not – there is no doubt that the Big Ten at the top of the league is as good or better than the SEC right now.
Yep.
They may be playing a better, more complete brand of ball, in my opinion. What Indiana did in the playoffs was really, really impressive, in my opinion. Pro-style offense, hard-nosed defense. They've won 3 straight national championships. The Big Ten has. Doesn't mean it's the most talented conference, though.
Right,
top to bottom. And this is where it plays into the college football playoffs, staying at 12 teams when you're adding a 9th conference game simultaneously.
No doubt.
And so, look, I think that we'll see where this all goes. But a lot of people expect the Big Ten to roll up into the SEC. I'm not sure that's going to happen. I will say this: there are a couple of schools that are giving the Big Ten some push, I think, right now, and going to give them push going forward. Oregon and USC are going to start adding more players to this list for the Big Ten for the NFL draft, just like Texas and Oklahoma have a year earlier for the SEC. So I would keep that in mind as well. So I feel like, look, I think that the SEC Big Ten are clearly the top two. The numbers speak to it. One thing you talked about, Jerry, that Ole Miss was a young team last year. Another team that, even though they had 6 players into the NFL Combine, just like Texas had 7, I think they were similarly young as Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Very young team, and to still have 6 guys going to the Combine. I think Notre Dame's going to be a team to watch next year, really.
100%. They lost the running backs, obviously. That was their position where they had the eldest statesman, let's say, on their team. But yes, because CJ Carr is a really good player. They have a number of really young, but now going to be older players on defense coming back, offensive line. Notre Dame's going to, and with their schedule, Notre Dame's going to be a problem next year. By the way, I went back and looked. Oklahoma, out of their 10, 7 of them were defense, entire starting defensive line. So let's see. Brent Venables has some work to do on that defensive line. They're recruiting pretty good players, obviously, but they lost 4 guys off their defensive front to the NFL Combine.
Let's see here. We got a super chat that we need to do this morning. And so while we're talking about the Combine, from Justin Yarbrough, he says, who's been some of the biggest Combine surprises y'all can remember? Also, Jerry, just realized y'all's hats are still in my truck.
Yes, sorry. Yeah, we got to connect on that. Thank you for that, by the way. Texas City hats, by the way. Autographed by Vernon Crawford. I'm joking. Texas City hats. Combine surprises, man. I mean,
for Texas,
I think we knew Xavier Worthy was fast, but anytime you break a record, that's still surprising at 4.21. That's still surprising.
Yeah, I had no clue he was going to break the all-time record.
No, that's not what I saw.
Recent one.
Yeah.
What about? I'm just thinking through some guys that really put themselves on the Marcus Wilkins. I can't remember if he even went to the Combine. Man, I don't know. Let me think about that. James Patton put up a ridiculous number of bench press. I remember that. That's been 30 years ago, though.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I'll say from just a football player perspective that kind of goes with Xavier Worthy showing up and running 4.21. Look, I saw Jadeveon Clowney in high school at the Under Armour All-America game, but just as an individual talent, look, you knew he's 6'5.25". You knew he weighed 265. But the fact that he ran a 4.53, and I think that was a record at the time. Now, some other guys have gotten more specific training and really learning how to run and get your starts perfected. But his testing numbers at that point in time were incredible to me, even having seen him. And I said to this day, has as quick a first 2 steps off the ball line of scrimmage as any kid his size I've ever seen in my life. And if he really truly loved football, would have been a gold jacket player. But Bobby, he had a 6'11" wingspan too. I remembered his arms being long, but then when I saw that, I was like, oh my gosh, he's 6'5". He has a plus wingspan. Then he ran 4.53. His 10-yard split was 1.59 at 266. And I mean, his L cone was 7.27. His shuttle was 4.4. He vertical 38. I mean, I just remember watching the Combine and watching him and saying, man, you knew he was good and athletic when you saw him in person, but he just eclipsed everything you even thought about him. Kind of like when Xavier Worthy ran that 4.21. You're just like, you knew he was fast, but that's just a different level. And Jadeveon Clowney's an all-around tester back then was off the charts. It was unbelievable. And somebody's saying Clowney ran 4.4. His official time was 4.53. But yes, I think somebody did have him at a 4.46.
Matthew Golden ran a 4.29. Did you expect that?
No, and I saw him a lot in high school.
I mean, we expected Isaiah Bond to run faster, did we not?
Yeah,
I mean, that's all we were talking about. Was that Isaiah Bond was going to try to be in the 4.2s. Well, all of a sudden, Matthew Golden goes up there and runs a 4.29. Yeah. That was unexpected. A.D. Mitchell was in the 4.3s. I think that was always a possibility, but even faster than I thought he would be. I thought he was going to be low 4.4s. But like Byron Murphy running a 4.8. Texas, I mean, look, 32 guys in the last 3 years. The bigger picture is this. That Texas Steve Sarkisian has officially turned the narrative.
Yeah.
That's my big picture takeaway when we talk about 7 guys going to the combine, even with some guys like Ethan Burke not being invited, okay? The narrative has officially changed. You go to Texas, you will be involved in the NFL draft at some level if you succeed. And Jerry, you and I well know that was not the case 5 years ago. They fought like hell against that. Charlie Strong fought like hell against it because the last half of Mac's classes didn't really transpire the way they wanted, right? So Charlie Strong fought against it. Tom Herman fought against it. Steve Sarkisian fought against it. That narrative has officially flipped with this class, I think. It now doesn't mean you can't have good recruiting classes in between or all that other stuff, but it's one obstacle that is now taken out of their way. And that is that narrative is gone and done with. You can't say that because I'm telling you right now, we're going to look up next year, by the way, and that number could be 10 to 15. They're invited to the NFL draft. So it's not going to just stop this year. So
by the way, here's something to look at. The 2022 recruiting class, Sark's first full recruiting class. Bobby, we may need to do a video on this one. They now have, as far as combines and draft picks, I mean, DJ Campbell's at the combine. He's going to be drafted. Kelvin Banks obviously came out a year early, first-round pick. So both of your 5-star offensive linemen are going to end up being drafted. Jaden Blue in the NFL. Jalen Gilbo, combine invite. Brennan Thompson transferred out, combine invite, right? And there's still some time. Some of these guys still have a year left. I mean, it wouldn't totally shock me. Ethan Burke, we can argue, should he be invited to the combine, will be in an NFL camp. Cameron Williams, 1-year starter in the NFL draft pick, right? And there's still a couple other guys that have a year left here, but the 5 stars have hit. You mentioned that Anthony Hill's about to be second or first round draft pick. So your 5-star guys, we give people credit for that. So if everybody's like, oh, a 5-star guy, those guys don't develop. They just go to the NFL draft. Yeah, maybe if you're Adrian Peterson and it's an instinctive position, but there's still a lot of development that still goes on in your big humans and your bigger guys. And so Texas has developed those guys. Anthony Hill had to develop as a linebacker. There was development with him. So it's time, I think, to make sure we give that staff credit because even their first class, and there's always misses in classes, right? You can look back at Nick Saban's classes, and all people talk about is, oh, there were 8 draft picks and all the 5 stars got drafted and all that, and people forget there's also 10 other guys that didn't pan out. It's that way with anybody's classes. Go look in the history of all this. But I think Sark and the staff, Torrey Beckton, those guys have done is they are developing the players. And one of the number one things, and maybe the number one thing for a kid and a parent is my kid going to be developed and have a chance to live out his dream? And Texas is doing that, to Bobby's point. Maybe it's time we may need to start taking – I may put something on the board on that too, some of the classes and where they're headed. 22 and 23 are classes that are becoming draft eligible.
I think they flipped the narrative. That's the bottom line. Texas used to be a place where you went to underperform and you liked being at Texas as much as you liked being a football player. That narrative is being flipped by Steve, or has been flipped by Steve Sarkisian. Point blank. More so than Tom Herman couldn't get over the hump Charlie Strong couldn't get over the hump. Mac Brown was languishing. Steve Sarkisian. That of all the mentalities that have been changed of a fan base over, if you were a fan that for that long, that's the thing that's been flipped. It happened in the 70s, 60s, and 70s. It happened in the 2000s. At some point, that mentality has to be flipped, and now we're in a situation where that's been changed fundamentally.
All right, well, we got more to talk about this morning. We got some super chats we need to get to as well. But first, Jerry, can you tell us about Hayes City Store?
I love telling people about Hayes City Store. It's just that one of those very few restaurants that once you go, you know they're special. You immediately know it. It's the vibe. It's the feel you get there. Hayes City Store, it's that place. It's scratch-made Texas comfort food as well. They got their famous truck top enchiladas, award-winning chicken fried steak, and homemade desserts. All of it absolutely delicious. All of it from scratch. They also have live music six nights a week with 50 beer taps, ice-cold long necks, and tasty margaritas. There are 13 TVs alone in their ice house, perfect for game days. And they even have brunch served 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. every Sunday. Hayes City Store is dog-friendly, and they have a tree net for kids. Parents don't get to go in the tree net. Join the folks out at Hayes City Store and bring your whole crew. For more information, check out the website at HayesCityStoreTX.com. Hayes City Store, it's uniquely Texas. There are not many better places. I'm going to add on to this to the read. There aren't many better places to go where you can sit at an outdoor bar, have dinner, have a couple of drinks, watch the sport of your choice, and have live music in the background with really good weather. That's all I need to tell you about Hayes City Store. A really great ownership group at Hayes City Store.
All right, and I'm going to tell everyone this morning about Ultra pouches. They sent me these, and well, when they did, one thing I didn't expect when I started using them was how dialed in my focus felt. It's not jittery, it's not a spike, it's just this calm, steady flow state. Ultra is zero nicotine, it's caffeine free, and it's powered by natural nootropics. And what's wild is 90% of users report noticeable improvements in focus, and I definitely get why. The energy is smooth, my memory feels sharper, my mood stays even. It doesn't matter whether I'm working, driving, recording, or just trying to lock in and get stuff done. It doesn't take over your headspace. It just helps you stay present and stay productive. It's the same pouch experience I like. You get the flavor, the burn, the kick. It's just cleaner and more controlled. If you want focus without the buzz or the crash, then Ultra is it. And Ultra is the ultimate guilt-free pouch. New customers get 15% off with code ONTEXAS at takeultra.com. That's takeultra.com, code ONTEXAS. And when they ask where you heard about them, tell them that On Texas Football sent you.
Hey, before we get going to the next stuff and get some questions in here, a couple of news and notes. Running backs coach for Oklahoma, DeMarco Murray, the former OU running back, has been their running backs coach for a number of years. He is leaving the Sooners and headed to the NFL with the Kansas City Chiefs in a similar position or a similar role. Also, Texas women's basketball goes to Vanderbilt tonight. Big contest in Nashville. Make sure you check that out. And then also Texas baseball gets started tomorrow. Should be a big one to get started for the Longhorns this weekend. Head coach Jim Schlossnagle will be joining us on the show tomorrow morning here on Coffee and Football. Wish him well as he and his guys get ready for this weekend.
Yeah, and I want to add one more thing real quick. As Schloss is joining us in the morning at 9 a.m., Tom Luganbill of ESPN, we've had him on many times, a friend, is going to join us, and he's going to tell Texas fans about all the ACC transfers to Texas. Obviously, he is one of the voices of the ACC for ESPN. So Hollywood Smothers, Melvin Ciani, Rasheem Biles, he's seen all those guys in the last couple of years as in the booth with the ACC and doing prep for all those ACC games. So Tom Luganbill will be on in the morning. So he'll give his thoughts on the Texas guys that transferred from ACC programs to Texas and in college football in general. I'm sure he'll have some thoughts on NIL, Charles Bediako, and where all this is going.
Well, let's do some super chats here, Bobby. We got one for you, and they want you to look into your crystal ball this morning. Kiss 1983 says, Bobby, Are you picking 10 or 11 wins next season? You were spot on last year with your predictions. Will we be better offensively? And I'm going to put the schedule up for you as you contemplate.
Better offensively early in particular. The answer there is undeniably. I mean, that was the whole, like, I felt like Texas was going to sputter out of the gate last year, right? Offensively, they just had too many moving pieces and a new quarterback. I hesitate to give you a number right now, but I'm pretty high on Texas next year now, guys. I think this is going to be the best team Sark has had. I mean, just as long as there are no gotchas in the next 6 months, I am as high on this Texas team as I've been maybe in 20 years, 15, at least 15. Because I don't see an overwhelming weakness. Could they slip up somewhere along the line? Yeah. But look, I think Texas is going to be more talented than every team they play this year, except for potentially Ohio State. And you could say LSU, perhaps.
Yeah.
But I just think Texas is going to be more talented. They get Ohio State at home. That's huge for me. Other than that, I mean, people are wanting 10, 11, 12. I see this as good an opportunity as Texas had in a long time. Primarily, when we started this show this morning, I talked about how a quarterback is a multiplying factor of talent. Well, none of those guys, none of those top teams really had an elite quarterback this year. I would say that Arch was an elite quarterback late in the year. And if he can be that late this coming year, or this coming up year, and just continue that process, I'm a big fan of Texas. I will say this. I'm not going to pick them to be 3-2 out of the gate, like I did this past year, in which they end up being. I just too much value in the quarterback, too much talent around him. When I said 10 to 15 guys that'll be in the NFL Combine next year, I think that's a very real number. The difference will be Texas will have elite quarterback play to go with that. And that's why what did Indiana have in the Combine, Jerry? 6 or 7 guys.
Yeah.
They had elite quarterback play to go with it. And that's why they're national champs. I think I'm just telling you.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's part of it, but not a deciding factor, because Carson Beck was in the national championship and Ohio State won it last year with Howard. So I think that's part of it for sure, but I don't think it's a must. I'm just a little different there. I think it's.
Well, I don't think it's a must. I want to say this, okay?
Yeah.
You could be the best team and not have the best quarterback.
Yeah. Will
Howard played really well in the playoffs.
Yeah.
I am just of the fact that I think I'm as close to all in as I can be on Texas for 2026 right now, unless something happens in the next 6 months that changes my mindset.
Yeah. I think my thoughts are, I actually love the first 3 games for Texas, because I don't think games 2, 3, and 4 last year helped Texas. San Jose State, UTEP, and Sam Houston State. That wasn't going to help Texas last year. Texas State and UTSA, while they're going to be tougher games, I mean, look, UTSA, Jeff Traylor's a really good football coach. A&M didn't pull away from them until, third and a half quarter of that game last year, when UTSA's top 2 D linemen went down with injury. But I just like playing Texas State and UTSA. I think those are better games for Texas. I just don't think you got anything out of playing Sam Houston State last year that helped you when your next game is Florida. I actually like, Ohio State obviously is what it is, but I like having two better G5 teams for Texas and for a talented team like Texas. I think this is the toughest schedule Texas has played in a while. A really tough road schedule. I mean, everybody kind of laughs at Missouri. Hey, they gave people games. They give people games. Eli Drinkwood's a good coach. You don't just walk in there and beat the hell out of them. Those are good games. Tennessee, going to be a really good game. LSU obviously is going to be raucous. And then at A&M, which, well, they're 0-1 against Texas in the SEC at home. But this schedule's so interesting because you have multiple new coaches. You have multiple new quarterbacks. So there's so much going on with the schedule. I think Texas, I'll start at 10-2 and see what happens. My biggest thing for Texas is going to be self-inflicted and penalties. If they clean that up, and they don't have to be top 5 in the country, that's not going to happen. You're not going to go from 135 to 5. But if they can be in the top half of college football in penalties, then I think you have a real chance. And I know Miami was about 110 or something in penalties. They had some really over-aggressive 15-yarders and such. But in the SEC, in the depth of talent in this league on this schedule, I think Texas needs to be in the top half of the country in penalties and some of those self-inflicted that really hurt them last year. So I think that discipline part of football, I think is maybe the most important thing for me. When I look at this schedule, I look at the coaches, I look at the teams that Texas is playing. You absolutely have to give yourself the best chance to win on this schedule. If you hurt yourself with the undisciplines, the self-inflicted, if you're in the 120s and penalties, it's going to be hard on this schedule, in my opinion. So I think if they get that cleaned up, and again, you don't have to be top 5. It's not going to go from 135 to 5 next year. That doesn't happen. But if you can be in the top half, you're going to give yourself a legitimate, real chance. Because Miami was 113. They lost 2 games, by the way, and almost didn't get in, and that was in the ACC. If Miami had played that type of football in the SEC, I don't think they'd have made the playoffs last year, and they ended up in the national championship.
I'll finish saying this. I don't think 12-0 is off the table. I mean, I like how the schedule sets up, actually. I like going to Tennessee relatively early. Gets you ready for OU. I mean, I like some of this stuff. I like it.
Blake, can you put that back up real quick? Sorry, but Bobby, I wanted to ask you this. So we have new quarterbacks at how many of these schools? We have Sandback. Do we have a ruling on Aguilar?
No, Aguilar. No.
Aguilar, no. Mateer is back. Florida, Philo, first-year starter, very talented kid. Ole Miss, we don't know yet. Mississippi State, the young kids were Kamario Taylor, very talented. He's going to be better than what they played. Missouri, new quarterback. LSU, obviously, Sam Levitt will miss spring with the foot. He had the Liz Frank. I'm pretty sure he's out for the spring. Arkansas, new quarterback. We'll see if Marcel Reed makes any big jump in year 3. If he doesn't make a big jump this year, it's not happening. But there's a lot of new quarterbacks on this schedule as well.
And none of them are named Arch Manning. I'm just telling you, I'm a big believer in that. Big believer. Getting Ohio State at home early is huge. That place
100%.
needs to be rocking.
100%.
They need to. The one thing that I saw last year, by the way, just talking to Ohio State briefly, the teams that gave Ohio State the most problems, like Indiana, they were able to create pressure up the middle against Sayin and make Sayin go outside the pocket.
Yeah.
And that's something that Will Muschamp needs to be dialed in for in 2026. That's going to be a key to that game.
Let's see here. Talking about rulings a second ago, we got a question from Christian Perez regarding that. He says, "Good morning, fellas. I've been out of the loop, but can you guys tell me the update on the guard we got in the portal who was asking for a 6th year? Hookle."
Yeah, young man's name is Lawrence Seymour. He's originally from the Miami area, spent a couple years at Miami, then a couple years at Toledo, then a couple years or a year at Western Kentucky. The issue right now is they're waiting for the NCAA to rule whether or not he's allowed an additional year. He has not played 2 of the years of the 5 that he's been in college football. One is a redshirt year. The other one was because of a personal issue that they are going to have to put forth and argue, and the NCAA will either determine that he's allowed a 6th year or not. The only thing I would the only thing I would say to that is that we will not find out about that until sometime this spring, and I've been given no updated timeline. And until the only timeline I've ever been given is sometime this spring. He right now is in Bowling Green, Kentucky, finishing up his degree at Western Kentucky. He'll come to Texas as a grad transfer.
But if you're on the side of what's going to happen, I think there's been a couple of 9 and 11th year guys get an extra year here recently. So we'll see. But there's been also some denials that weren't expected too.
Well, we're going to get to some more super chats here in just a moment. But first, Bobby, I'm going to let you tell everyone this morning about Hollow Socks.
I can do that. The last couple of weeks have been pretty cold, and I've been wearing these a lot. Lightweight, supportive, and unbelievably soft. They're 3 times warmer than wool, yet still lightweight. They are alpaca socks built for the field. These are performance-grade socks made from ultra-soft baby alpaca fibers, engineered for rugged conditions and designed to keep your feet dry, warm, and comfortable no matter where the day takes you. Hollow doesn't just make socks for the outdoors. They've engineered them for every activity. They're everyday socks. They're soft, breathable comfort for daily wear, travel, or downtime. They also have compression socks for gradual compression comfort to keep your legs comfortable. Hunt socks designed to keep your legs fresh and feet fresh, as well as trade socks perfect for long shifts and 14-hour days in boots. For a limited time, Hollow Socks is having a buy 2, get 2 free sale. Head to hollowsocks.com today to check it out. That's hollowsocks.com for up to 50% off your order. After you purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them. You can support our show by telling them that we sent you here at On Texas Football. Again, buy 2, get 2 free sale, up to 50% off your order at hollowsocks.com. Baby alpaca fibers. Never thought I'd say that in my life, but they do really, do well. They keep your feet dry even after it's been cold outside and you got warm feet inside boots. Good stuff.
And Jerry, I'm going to let you tell everyone about Ridge Wallet.
Man, I love doing this. There's no doubt about it. It's that it's time to get away from that crusty old brick. Remember that thing? You hated it, right? Oof, man, it felt bad in the pocket. There is no doubt about that. I just lost my read, guys. Hold on 1 second. I lost my read. Oh my gosh. All right. I think I've got it back here. Yes, I do. That crusty old wallet, it hurt your back. It was uneven when you're driving, man. But what is the Ridge wallet? It's a unique, slim, modern design that holds up to 12 cards plus cash. It's easy to hide from the wife, too, by the way. Made with premium materials like aluminum, titanium, and carbon fiber, there's over 50 colors to choose from and styles, including that Texas one that Blake is showing you. All Ridge products have a lifetime warranty. This is literally the last wallet you'll ever have to buy. Does it give you peace of mind knowing that all Ridge wallets have RFID blocking technology? It should. It keeps you safe from digital pickpocketers. There's over 100,000 5-star views, and that number is going up quickly. Losing your wallet is the absolute worst, but with the Ridge AirTag attachment, you'll always know exactly where it is before panic mode kicks in. Ridge isn't just about wallets. They create premium everyday essentials like key cases, suitcases, and rings, all built with the sleek, durable design. No matter what you pick, Ridge has free shipping, a 99-day free risk trial, and lifetime warranty on every single one of their products. For a limited time, our listeners get 10% off at Ridge by using code ONTEXAS at checkout. Just head to ridge.com and use code ONTEXAS, and you're all set. After the purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them. That's the best dang sports show about Texas. See, Bobby, I left out the cuss word.
Thank you. Thank you. For
I'll
doing
get
that.
you back. I'll get it back later.
By the way, I bought my son a Ridge wallet now too. He loves it.
Yeah,
They're awesome.
He wears, yeah, they really are.
Got mine right here.
Yeah.
Love it.
Hey, Scott, we had a good question in the chat. Who is QB2? We'll have to get to that in a second. We'll get to that one. A couple of people asked.
Well, we got some
Texas?
super chats.
Yeah,
It's KJ Lacey. We'll
get into this. We'll get into it a little bit.
Okay.
Well, first we got to get into some super chats, and let's take this one from R. Gilbert here. While Strong and Herman had some good recruiting classes, they were far behind Sark when it comes to development across the board.
I think that development is part of that. I think putting guys in position to win is where Sark was better. It's better than both Strong and Herman. I really believe that. It's not just about development; it's about buy-in. Man, what is the difference, Jerry? Fundamentally, is it just more talent? Is it?
Yes.
You think it's just more talent is the fundamental difference? These teams have fundamentally more talent than. I mean, look, Tom Herman had some talented teams. Charlie Strong had Deontay Foreman and 4 NFL defensive linemen starting for him, and a second round pick on the offensive line. And
but it's the depth of talent. It's also a different time because of the portal.
Yeah,
that's the hard thing to compare. I mean, I think sometimes it's easy. And while I agree with it, Sark, and I think they have more talent, I also think they're recruiting nationally, and so the old school. People from inside the state of Texas don't like that as much, but they are recruiting nationally for the first time as a program. They've gone out and gotten really highly ranked guys from around the country that may actually be better in some cases than some kids at Texas from the state of Texas at the same age. So I think there's 2 major changes there for me, but I think the depth of talent in the program is easily seen. I mean, now Charlie Strong had a tremendous class in 2015 at Texas. I mean, I'm just throw some names at people. Malik Jefferson, Holton Hill, Chris Boyd, Chris Warren. I mean, I can keep going. The NFL draft picks. I'm going down the list. Aminahu, Deshaun Elliott. I mean, he had a Connor Williams. Devontae Davis, a really good player. PJ Locke. I mean, he had that class, and that Michael Dixon. I mean, that class was loaded with NFL players. But I still say the depth of talent, and I think the organization of Texas right now is in a really good spot. And I think the 1 through 85 depth of talent is just on another level, and that's obvious by NFL combines and draft picks. But I think, in fairness to some of the coaches that came before the portal, it's so different now. But what Sark's done is it's become a national recruiting program. And my dad, y'all know my dad was a high school coach in the state. I grew up on the sidelines in the state of Texas. And I think Texas is one of the 2 most talented states in the country. But that doesn't mean every single position has the best player. So just think about this. If you only recruited Texas, you'd have tried to get Jackson Arnold instead of Arch Manning. Do I need to go any further than that? I mean,
not for me.
I mean, it's like, so I think Texas is they are maximizing their recruiting landscape right now.
I have not thought about the one piece of that you mentioned previously, and that is the impact of the portal, because the portal can cover up major mistakes in recruiting.
Yeah.
I mean, it can if you made a major mistake in recruiting, you were toast.
It might toast you for 2 or 3 years.
Yeah. Nowadays, one off season, we wiped that problem clean. It's like you know, what's that called? Liquid paper, the stuff that you can used to be able to pour over when you made a mistake on a paper. It allows you to erase mistakes quicker than ever before and overcome them. Whereas, I mean, think about it. Think how long Texas had a drought on the offensive line.
Yeah.
In 10 years.
Yeah.
What would have happened with the portal?
No.
They would have went out and done something about it.
Yeah.
But you couldn't do something about it when it was just high school recruiting.
Yeah. Yeah. Somebody said, what was Charlie Strong's best season at Texas? Or record-wise? Was it 7-5?
6-7, I think.
So, yeah, it wasn't. Yeah, the results.
Lost Arkansas in the Houston game, where I think they had a total of 60 yards total offense.
Yeah. By the way, Bobby, to your point on quarterback, though, one of the most interesting things, it was 6-5, 6-7, 5 and 7, 5 and 7. One of the most interesting things about quarterbacks in college football is if you get one good one, and you're a college coach, and you get one good one when you're moving up the ranks, it turns into generational wealth for your family. I mean, Charlie Strong, who was that guy for him? I mean, Teddy Bridgewater. Yeah. Florida messed up the Teddy Bridgewater recruitment. He ended up with Charlie Strong. And not that Charlie Strong's an unbelievable recruiter. Go look back at those Florida teams, and the guys he recruited on those teams is unbelievable. He has a lot of strengths. But one quarterback, Eric Morris at North Texas, look what that just did for him. He's now a head coach at Oklahoma State. And that guy goes with him now. That's the difference in the portal. In the back of the portal day and age, think about some of those quarterbacks that would have transferred to your coaching hires and the difference that would have made. It's pretty crazy to look back at that. But to your point, Bobby, on quarterbacks, it changes coaches' lives. I know that if they get one good one in college football. Changes their life.
Shawnee Jackson here with a super chat. Thank you. Appreciate it. Says 6'5", 230 pounds, 4'6" to 4'5" speed, cannon arm, more experience in the system, more talent around him. Don't overthink what's about to happen with Arch this season.
I thought he was talking about Marcel Reed until the Arch thing came out. Sorry.
Yeah. See, this is my point. I'm closer to this line of thinking than people want to recognize. As long as the offensive line can come together, if that offensive line can be just good, doesn't have to be great, just good. I really don't see what's gonna. I can't foresee anything else happening. I think he finished the year so strong, man. And what he also did later in the year is they started designing more runs for him. And think about A&M, big run. Think about Michigan, big run, put the game away. When they started designing some runs for him, he virtually eliminated the red zone issues with his running game. He had 10 rushing touchdowns last year, guys. That's significant. Yeah, I agree with Shoney. I mean, I don't overthink it too much, but you have to be a little wary as you're going through that list of the schedule. But I don't see a team that Texas can't beat. I'll put it that way.
And then we got one here from Spank Boogie. It says, does Texas have a legit shot at John Meredith?
According to my sources, yes. And I would say don't take anything that he didn't come to campus for junior day. There had been I believe somebody in the family just got married. The family been traveling, so they just didn't want to travel that weekend. They just got back from Hawaii, I believe, on a honeymoon. So according to my source, yes, very much so. And look, Will Muschamp and the defensive staff members went by the school in January. There's been constant communication there. I do think Texas will be very much a player in that recruitment. Now, NIL is going to be big in all this, right? There's a lot of transactional with these level recruitments, but is Texas going to be very much in this? Yes. How will it end? I can't say that in the NIL world, but Texas will be very much in it. If they don't get a spring unofficial and a June official, I'd be pretty surprised.
Hey, Jerry, tell people who John Meredith is, just for those unaware.
Yeah. 5-star corner out of Euless Trinity. Out of Euless Trinity. He's out of Euless Trinity, who's now at North Crowley. Family moved. I think they're, like I said, I think mom got married and her husband lives down in North Crowley School District. So he's going to North Crowley now. Well, like they needed him, by the way. Wow. Their whole secondary is power 4. Most of their defense is power 4. But he is 6'2", 175. I saw him when he was younger. Saw him at the Under Armour game practices this year. He's an elite cover corner talent because of that length he has and because of the makeup speed, the ability to turn and run he has. And a lot of people ask me, well, is he as good as Devin Sanchez? I don't want to say he's as good as Devin Sanchez. Devin Sanchez had a real physicality about him and was a little bit bigger frame guy at the same age. So I'm not going to sit here and say that. I think Devin Sanchez is truly one of the best corners prospects that's come out of this state in a while. But this guy is a legitimate high-end corner prospect. He's been very well coached. He works with a guy up in the Dallas area. Does a great job. It does a great job with defensive backs, training those guys. But this guy's upside's really high because he is probably 170, 172 at 6'2", a legitimate 6'2". He can get stronger. He's going to get stronger. But he's a really talented corner. Everybody wants him. Like everybody in the country wants him. You name it, Texas, Texas A&M, Alabama, Ohio State. You're going to hear all those schools mentioned with him. But I think Texas is very much in it.
Just watching him here. He's a little you worry about his physicality, but he actually looks fairly physical in this.
No, yeah, Devin Sanchez is just another level of physical.
Oh, okay. I got what you're saying.
And this is his sophomore highlights, by the way.
Devin Sanchez hit like a safety at corner. I mean, he really was super. I mean, Devin Sanchez could be a top 5 pick in the NFL draft. Somebody said this, Shoney Jackson. I agree with him. I mean, if you listen to Ohio State people too, the way they talked about him his freshman year, they think he is Devin Sanchez is about as good as they've had. Going to be a better player than Jeff Okudah. But John Meredith is tremendous, and now he's at North Crowley. If you live in that area, go watch North Crowley this year. Go watch them when they play Duncanville. That game's going to be unbelievable. Unbelievable. There may be 60 Division I players on the field that night. There's going to be some kids that don't start that will sign D1 in that game.
Wow.
Well,
something else that's tremendous and unbelievable is Vonlane, Jerry. And I
hasn't it always
tell
been?
Everybody about him.
Hasn't it always been? That's just what I would say. No doubt about that. I've got to grab my read here. I've got a lot of things going on this morning. The smarter way to travel for work and beyond. The holidays are well behind us. Got Valentine's Day coming up. But it's back to business, meetings, conferences, and packed travel calendars. If you're still flying short routes or driving hours between cities, there's a better way to get there, and that is Vonlane, one of our great sponsors. Vonlane delivers a first-class travel experience on the ground. You board in minutes at a private hotel terminal, settle into just one of 22 oversized leather seats, and enjoy complimentary Wi-Fi, snacks, and beverages, and hot towel service on every trip. On select departures, Vonlane also offers complimentary meals, making travel time genuinely productive and or relaxing. Vonlane is also rolling out Starlink internet across the fleet, making complimentary Wi-Fi even faster and more reliable, perfect for staying connected on the way to meetings and conferences, or scrolling TikTok or Instagram or whatever you do when you're relaxing. Vonlane serves Austin, Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, Fort Worth, Plano, the Woodlands, Nashville, Memphis, Atlanta, and Knoxville. That list is growing. And if you're traveling with a team, you can even charter your own Vonlane. We've talked about it, Texas fans. If you live in Houston, think about you and the boys and everybody taking a Vonlane from Houston to BR for that LSU game and booing Lane Kiffin. You could design your own trip from pickup to drop off. Visit Vonlane.com. And if it's your first time riding, enter OTF26 at checkout to receive $20 off your first trip. Vonlane, it is a private jet on wheels and one of a kind.
Thank you, Jerry. And we'll do one more question this morning before we get out of here. And Lester Holt wants to know. He said, well, first he says, Texas needs an SEC title to solidify themselves in the SEC. But he wants to know, do you guys think the path to an SEC title is easier than a path to the national championship?
Not with a 9-game schedule.
I would go opposite. I think it's definitely easier to win an SEC title than a national title. I think you're one of in the SEC. I think that you're one of 6 teams right now that can legitimately win it. I think in the national championship, you've got other mitigating factors. The other thing that I would add to this too is it becomes injuries later in the season can really add up, and so that becomes more of a risk factor. I don't know who's going to be favored to win the SEC this year. I think it should be Texas. May not be because of the schedule, but I think it very well could be Texas.
Yeah, I kind of look at the SEC football schedule like the SEC basketball last year when Jay Billis said it's going to be harder to win the SEC than the national championship, and obviously Florida won the national championship. I think when you look at it, there's only one off week this year. So you play 9 SEC games over a 10-week period. And so when you look at Texas' schedule, I mean, Tennessee, Oklahoma, Florida, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, at Missouri, at LSU, Arkansas, at A&M. You have 1 week off. Literally every week, you're playing a very talented team in the SEC. And if you look ahead at all, you get dotted. In the playoffs, or if you have a bad game, you get dotted in this league. And you look at the college football playoff, the way it's set up, I mean, you have 20-plus days to get healthy if you win your conference before you play this year. 29 days, 28 days between the last regular season, a playoff game, your first round playoff game. What if you draw a G5? I mean, so I think it's a fun discussion, but I think with the 9-game schedule, it may actually be harder to win the league in a weird way because you don't have time to come back from injury. In the college football playoff, you have enough time to get some guys healed up from game to game, unless it's a major. That's just one way I would look at it.
And we had a super chat come in real quick, and y'all pretty much touched on this earlier when we were talking about Charlie Strong and Tom Herman. But he said, and Juan Garza wants to know, what's the difference between Sark's recruiting operations to Charlie and Tom, just based on recruiting?
There's a lot more people on staff now. That's the other thing that Texas, Nick Saban was always ahead of people, Bobby. Felt like he had an NFL office of people, right? The scouting department, everything was so far ahead. I think that's the one thing we don't talk about enough that Texas is really, and Sark has really caught Texas up in. They have they're well stocked in their department, in their organization. And if you're not, you're going to get dusted in the portal and in high school recruiting now. So I would say that's the one thing, a major thing for me, because there's not as much time now, and you have so much going on. So I think from the recruiting organizational standpoint, Texas is well ahead. And some of that's out of necessity, but it's also Texas caught up with what Nick Saban was doing and what a few other people were doing that were so successful, where I think Texas had fallen behind a little bit from a recruiting standpoint. That's one thing I would say.
Charlie Strong had a much more top-down approach to recruiting. He really was involved in every aspect of recruiting, just about.
Oh, yeah.
Charlie Strong recruited 8 to 10 guys each year individually. Like, he acted as their primary recruiter. Tom Herman did not do that.
No.
Now, I would add this. Mike Giglio was the director of player personnel for Texas at that point, which has evolved into what has become a GM. Mike Giglio is now the GM of UTSA football for Jeff Traylor. And I think that my viewpoint on that is that Tom Herman was more, he wasn't hands-off with recruiting. He certainly was hands-on. He wasn't as hands-on as Charlie Strong.
Yeah, 100%.
And he wasn't as personable with those relationships. Charlie Strong was phenomenal.
Phenomenal.
The difference with Sark, in my opinion, is Sark is part of that in 3 to 5 recruitments probably a year. But he has, to Jerry's point, he's created a bigger apparatus to give the appropriate attention to more players on an ongoing basis. So he casts a wider net. Also, as part of that, the other difference is a true attention to national recruiting. Yeah. It's not spot recruiting on a national basis, which is what Charlie Strong and Tom Herman did. Texas is truly recruiting the entire South. They're truly recruiting Southern California. So there's a couple of meaningful differences. Now they have the personnel and the amount of personnel to be able to do that. Whereas before they didn't have the personnel numbers to do that. But those would be the differences for me.
There's a video clip out there. It was interesting. I saw it on social media, but I haven't gone back and listened to it. Urban was talking about the differences now. Urban Meyer was talking about the differences in recruiting now versus then, and having somebody that would sit there and next to him in a recruiting department and write 300 texts to kids a day. Like, it's not the head coaches doing that a lot of times, right? Like, if we're going to be real, it's people in the office. These guys don't have enough time to text 300 kids or send 300 texts in responses. That's not always, they just don't have that type of time. But go search Urban Meyer on recruiting and NIL. And I think he had some very interesting things to say. And like I said, I haven't had a chance to go through all of it. But what he talked about being so transactional and different nowadays versus having all those guys who would be constantly in communication with high school kids. Now it's more of your department is scouting kids in the portal and in the future, more than having all the communication with kids, and how that's changed from a top-down perspective. It was pretty interesting what he had to say. Because obviously we wouldn't know that. We were never in that position of how he scheduled it and went through his day from a recruiting standpoint.
Yeah, Bob Shipley was part of that process for him, so we could talk to Bob about that.
Yeah.
All right, y'all. That's going to do it for today's episode of Coffee and Football, presented by Vonlane. I want to thank Vonlane, along with Ridge, Hollow, Ultra Pouches, and Hayes City Store for sponsoring today's show. And, of course, we want to thank all of you for tuning in as well. The great questions, the super chats, the discussion. Bobby, what can people tune into later?
We got Football Theory coming up. Rod Baber's going to break some stuff down for you. Also, just a note on tomorrow's show, I mentioned Texas baseball coach Jim Schlossnagle. Jerry mentioned ESPN analyst Tom Luganville will be joining us. Texas baseball season gets started this weekend. We got women's basketball tonight, softball back at it. It's a full list. Also, Jerry and the guys have been breaking some recruiting news on the message board over at ontexasfootball.com. Some more guys have set up official visits and unofficial visits to the University of Texas. Best of luck as the scroll goes on here to the 7 guys from the University of Texas that were invited to the combine. I will say this, Ethan Burke, you were not invited, but my man, go prove him wrong. That's what I would end with. But.
Yeah.
There you go. All right, well, we will be back same time, same place tomorrow. We hope you all have a phenomenal day today. So for Bobby Burton and Jerry Hamilton, I'm Blake Monroe, and we'll see you then.
Hook 'em.